So what we're going to do today as well, guys, is we're going to actually show you how to link up or set up your Xero from scratch. And just to give you, because I know the other side that all of you on the call knows, what are the cost of Xero? What's the time involved? So Xero has, if you're using Xero as just a single user and you're going to go sign up today, there's generally 3 different levels that you can sign up to. And they're usually based on how many invoices you prepare out of your business. So if you're really preparing no to little invoices, you'll probably be on the cheaper one. If you're preparing more than a certain level, and it might be 5 or 10 invoices, then you'll probably be in the standard or the middle sort of fee charge. And then if you're doing any business where you're using overseas funds or foreign currencies, then you'll be more on the expensive side. And when I say expensive, but you're probably talking about $60 a month plus GST, down to the cheaper end, which is, I think it's around $27 plus GST. Now that's the base. If you jump on and use your, sign up with an accountant who's a Xero partner, then they can offer you discounts on top of that. And they also have access to an extra 3 options, which are a bit cheaper. So if you have no invoices and you might not even be GST registered, then there's, I think it might even be like $15 or $20 a month. All these are per month too, guys. And there could be one that's about $10 a month if you're purely just using it for year end and you don't actually need any live bank accounts and whatnot. So again, you don't have to remember all of these cost levels, but it's just what I'm trying to say to you is if you have an accountant, you might have access to cheaper rates. If especially being a new business and a startup, you want to make sure your costs are obviously kept to a minimum. But then on the other hand, if this software and system is saving you a bit of time in the long run of money, then yeah, why not? It might pay itself off. Okay, so I'll start sharing my screen, guys, and we'll work through this live demo together. So I'll share this. Here we go. So everyone should be able to see my screen now. So just like I said before, guys, feel free to jump off mute, hit me with any questions you got, and we'll try and tick it off as we can. If there's anything specific to your business, maybe we jump on later at the end and we can just have some little one-on-one time, especially if it's specifics to your business itself, and we might be able to share some screens and whatnot. But anyway, let's get into Xero. So this is based for those who are new to Xero and haven't seen it. This is what Xero looks like. Okay, when you first log in, this is basically the main screen, or they call it a dashboard. So this is your high level look at your Xero account. And I talked about before that we're using a demo company in Xero. So if you have and you can just even sign up for a trial account and call it whatever you want, don't have to pay anything. You can actually click on to something called a demo company, and even if you have a company now, you can still click on this, and you'll be wondering, why would I want to click on the demo company when I already have my company? Well, here you can actually play with anything you want and not impact your own numbers, obviously, and that's the main thing. There might be some items in Xero, in your own Xero account, where you don't want to actually touch it because you're a bit worried, and this is the place where you can basically play and have some fun and I call it tutu with the numbers, and you know that there's going to be no issues in the long run around your accounts. Okay, so this is where you can sort of touch a few things, and if you accidentally delete something or you're trying to upload something, then that's where you can come to. So what we're going to cover off first is when you do set up your Xero account, GST is one of the questions that pops up. So if your entity is registered for GST or not, that's one of the main big questions from when you start a Xero account. And obviously, if you're GST registered, then you're going to be, returning GST, or you're going to be paying GST or charging GST on invoices. Versus if you're not GST registered, then you're telling Xero we're going to basically remove any GST items off or off the system for now, or sort of put it on hold. You might not be GST registered now, and you might move to it later, but that's one of the key sort of items to tick off at the start. And if you have done that incorrectly, that's fine. Of course, there's ways to fix it or correct it, but that's just one of the items, and that sort of determines a few things on how you'd use Xero. Okay, so that's number one. And then from your end, this is your dashboard, like I said before, and this is all the main items that you want to see. And down the bottom here, you've sort of got an edit dashboard. And this is where you can hide some items and keep some items. Again, you might want to leave everything else on there, or you're just interested in keeping. So let's say I want I don't want to see any expense claims, and I want to see my bills to pay, but I actually want to, that's quite important to me. So I'll move that up the top. And then also cash in and cash out overall, I want to move that to the top because it's important to me. And again, it's just the first thing that you see on your screen. So that way you can sort of edit your dashboard on how you see some of the things that are important to you. The other good thing about Xero is basically anywhere there's some sort of, figure or item, you can actually click onto it to dive deeper into the detail. So for those of you who are the business owners that, are really into their numbers, and I always talk about my dad in these workshops, and he absolutely hates accounts and accounting and tax. He just wants to know how much tax he has to pay, and that's it. He doesn't care about any of this sort of stuff. So from his point of view, I wouldn't even talk to him about any of this because I just know that's him. Whereas I know there's some of you on the call, and even like me, I need to know, all the little bits and details behind this. So let's say, for example, and you're more of looking at your cash, and let's say the cash in January, if I just hover my mouse over that, it's telling me that for January I had about 2.5 come in and 9 grand go out. And that's quite a bit of money compared to going out compared to the other months. So I can actually click into that, and we can actually dive in to this sort of got the detail here, but then I can click on that cash spent. And then once it loads, it's actually going to show me all of my cash that I'd spent during that period. Okay, so I can actually work through that. So what I'm just trying to show you here is that with Xero, regardless of wherever you're clicking, this is for everyone that's just new to it, you can basically click on everything that has a number or some sort of sign next to it, okay? And it should dive into what is making up that figure. So for example, if I've got invoices here of 20 grand and I wanted to look at, what that's made up of, or I want to see the 14 invoices that are waiting, I can just click on that and that should actually bring up everything, okay? So just reiterating that point. So we're going to jump into the accounts basics now. So this is for those of you on the call who do goods and credits or send out invoices. Okay, so we're going to just start off with the sending out invoices side of things, and quotes as well. I'm going to touch on that, and then we're also going to touch on the purchases or the payables. So if you have a lot of bills to pay, how that works into it as well. So what we do here, guys, is we'll jump on business up the top. So on these tabs up here, you've obviously got dashboard where we're sitting now. You've got your business items, and we're going to work through these. Then you've got your accounting items. Again, we'll work through these and why this might look a bit bigger than your one. Payroll, projects, and then your contacts. Okay, so we're going to work through all of that up here. You can actually search for anything. So in the demo company, this doesn't work, but if you're looking to find, you heard me say, maybe a contacts list and you don't actually know where to find that, this is where you can actually type in contacts list, and Xero should drop down and give you a link to that, and you should go straight to it in Xero. Or a find and recode, that's just another thing that I'm going to talk about later. Again, you can type that in, and instead of you trying to, go the long way and try find it where it's sitting in Xero, it might be here, and then you've got to go into chart of accounts, you can actually get a shortcut straight there. Okay, so just for you guys as users, that's a quicker way for you to use it. So let's go back to the invoices. We've got invoice, and let's say we've done a job, or let's actually go before an invoice. Let's say we want to do a quote. Okay, we're like maybe we're a builder, and we've just been given a job, and it was for Issac. And at the moment, I've got the customer details already locked in. So let's say I've picked that up there. I can just do the date of the quote, and this is just another good thing for small businesses, is actually having an expiry date on your quotes. And you'll be like, why do we need an expiry date? If you think about build costs at the moment, they're growing exponentially. Okay, so if you leave this open and it's an open quote, usually quotes generally have about a month or two life. If you let that open and your client comes back to you 12 months later and says, yep, I want to do that quote, let's go ahead. And if you actually say yes to that, then you're basically signing up to that quote. Okay, so you'll sign up to those costs that you agreed. Yes, there might be some overruns that you can negotiate, but that's what this part is for. Okay, so let's say we want to expire in 30 days, whether they accept it or not. Xero will automatically provide your quote number. You can change this as well. Again, everything's, you can edit, you can chuck in your own reference and whatnot. So let's say we wanted to build a fence, and it was, 10 meters long, and we charged $150 per fence. You can chuck in discounts and items and stuff in there. because it's a quote, this item here, or this area here, is where we sort of chuck in what account it's going to go towards. So for being a building business, you might have a certain type of revenue accounts, but in this area, we've only got 3 items at the moment to add, to put it towards. Let's say we put it to sales for now, but you do have a chance to add an account. But I'll touch on this later on how we can set up more accounts, edit accounts and whatnot, okay? So just from a quote and from your side of things, we want to put this to income because it's going to be income coming in. This entity is registered for GST, so it's already picked up that there's going to be GST on this invoice. And again, we've basically drafted up this quote. Let's say that's it. You can chuck in some terms down here as well. And then what you can do is you can either save it down, so you don't want to send it yet because you might want to edit it tomorrow, or you're not too sure about some goods to come in. But let's say we want to send it to Isaac. If my contact detail, and I'll jump into contact details later, if my contact details are right, Xero should have, if I pick Isaac as a customer, it'll already have the email address I want to use. It'll have any other sort of items specific to Isaac that I might want to use as well in regards to invoices. So this is what the quote email will look like. So actually this is Xero telling you or sending it on your behalf. Okay, so it's all automated. You don't have to spend time drafting an email. You don't have to spend any time, you know, thinking about what you can say. This is all, and it's all, you know, more of a professional look from you as a business owner. It's consistent. Everyone's going to get the same sort of email. Okay, so this is what you can look. You can edit it however you want. You know, you can chuck in your clients' names, etc., just to make it more personalized. And I think, you know, that's a recommendation from me. But let's say I just send it out. That's fine. And let's say we go back to our quotes. Isaac comes back and says, yep, I'm really happy with that quote. I want to go ahead with it. So what I can do here is I can mark it as accepted. And then what I do now is I create an invoice. Okay, so I create the invoice, and then that's basically rolls over into an invoice. So this is again rolled over for Xero, and all I have to do is press approve, and that's it. Okay, so in regards to setting up a quote and setting up, oh, so this is another good feature, is basically it's telling me that I've missed something and I was rushing too quick, and basically I need to complete a due date. So what this is obviously it's saying today is the date of the invoice, but when do we want to get paid? Okay, so, you know, and everyone has different payment terms. It could be the 20th of the following month and whatnot, but let's say we want to make sure our cash flow is quite good, so we're going to put it to 14 days or 2 weeks. So after that, and even before I approve the invoice, I might want to have a look at it and just see what it looks like from the customer's point of view. And this has got the logo. You can chuck in your own logo here as well. And under invoice settings, we'll talk about that later. But basically, you can see the entire invoice and how it would look from the client's point of view. Okay, so, you know, is this saying the right type of things? Is that the right bank account, etc.? And again, you just want to make sure you're reviewing that. Not for, it doesn't need to be every single invoice, but it would pay to do that going forward. Okay, so that's just an example of how you prepare an invoice from a quote. So if I just approve it, yes.
What do you put in the item box?
Item code. This one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if I go back to my quotes, or even if I'll instead of going to quotes now, I'll prepare an invoice. So we're going to skip the quote process, and we're actually going to just prepare a new invoice. So this item column, and this is where it can save you a lot of time. So those of you on the call who are, let's say, my parents, my dad, he's an electrician, and my mum, she prepares the sort of accounts for him, and she types up all of his invoices. And about 2 years ago, she would come in and prepare, you know, for any electrician, there'd be maybe 20 different items. There could be plugs, wire, everything like that, that she's basically coding every single time. And it's just a pain in the ass if you ask me. And then when I actually heard about what she's doing, then we sort of talked about this section here. So that what this is about setting sort of a set amount for a specific item. So let's say we had no items in there. So if let's say you're starting from scratch and you're selling, let's say, you know, I had in there if I was an accountant and I, you know, charged an individual $250 for a tax return, and there's GST on that, and this is just tax return. and you can chuck your code into whatever it wants. Xero will tell you if it can't be a code, and it doesn't matter. But I'll call it 124, and I'll go tax return contractors. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm creating an item that I can click on or add to my invoices. Okay, so if I click save now that's saved down as a, I'll click none. If I click down here and let's say every invoice I know if I'm gonna do a contractor tax return, I'll click on that and it basically populates everything for me. So you can imagine you just do it once to set up one item in your inventory, or as a cost item that you're doing. It could be, you know, a meter of wire in my dad's case, or it could be a certain 3-plug hot point where you put your power into, and that way she's not typing in everything. The quantity is always the same, the unit price is the same, and then this is where you can actually go in and edit the quantity. So, you know, there might actually be 2 returns, and all I do is change the numbers. Okay.
That's great.
That makes sense. So that will save you a lot of time. If you're looking at this going, man, why didn't I know that?
Yes.
That's what the item area is, and that will save you a lot. Now, with this item, this is just more general advice for you guys. When you're setting up these items, it's really important to review these items. And I talked about this last week. Review it on an ongoing basis. So, you know, these tax returns might be 250 each now, but in 6 months' time, I might need to review that cost, and it should go up to 275. Okay, so and there's an area in here we can actually check. So under business, you've got your products and services, and that's where your whole list of these items are held. I'll jump around, actually, I'll do move into this next. So if I go into this area, these are basically all of my different products that I'm offering. In the demo company, they've already got some that are already automatically here, and they've got certain codes put against them. I've just put numbers. You can put words, etc. And they've also got their cost price, and you can set a different sales price as well. Okay, so that's if you're sort of managing inventory levels and whatnot. But yeah, this is the area where you'd come to, and there's especially with the demo company, with all of these areas, you can actually click on these watch videos. So basically, I'll just show you an example of play it. Turn that down, it's quite loud. Xero will actually
in Xero to keep
talk you through the different area. Okay, so if there's something that I might have missed on this chat, you can actually go in and have a look at that. Okay, I do see there's a question from Mary.
Sorry, it was just in regards to when you were adding the GST. What if your amount, so you had is already inclusive of GST? How do you correct that to show that?
Yeah, sure. Really good question. So let's go back, and I'll click on my fencing quote that I had agreed. And let's say we actually agreed it was $1,500 including GST. I can actually go and edit my invoice, and you can edit invoices until they have had a payment put against them. Okay, so if they've got a payment put against them, you've got to, and I'll talk about this, it's sort of remove and redo. So you basically tell Xero, we don't want to apply the payment to this invoice anymore. It's going to go sit back as a to-do item, and then we're going to update our invoice and then go back and join the dots, basically, or reconcile them is the name. So in this situation, we've got our fence items here, but up here I can click on tax inclusive. Okay, so that tax inclusive item is me telling that anything that I type into this invoice here, or this unit price, is actually tax inclusive. This is also saying we've got GST. If we have no GST, we can update that there. Otherwise, we're going to return GST on that income, but we told the client it's $1,500 including GST. So the total amount that they pay will be $1,500, and there's your GST amount that you'll have to return as well. Okay, so is there any other questions from you guys on the invoices side of things?
Thank you.
No problem. So the other side of this is, let's say I update that, and this might be another. This is a really common item that I find when I see new Xero accounts, is that people might prepare invoices, but they're not actually joining the dots in regards to matching a payment with an invoice. So they might be reconciling and saying it is income, which is fine and correct, but from Xero's point of view, it's still expecting some payment to come towards or be allocated towards that invoice. Okay, so in other situations, especially with tradies, some of them might get paid some cash now, and it might go into, you know, their own, they might get physical cash in their hand, and they might accidentally deposit that into their own bank account, and then, you know, they might forget to chuck it in the business bank account, or do that in a delayed manner. So basically down here is how you can sort of remove some of these invoices. Is one way to remove an invoice is and this is assuming you got paid in a different way through your business bank account, okay? And you can, you know, let's say you got the date paid and you got paid to yourself, so you didn't actually get it to your bank account, you just got paid in cash and you went and spent that on other business items. In the accounts area that I'll show you later, you can actually say that, or put this to shareholder drawings. So what this is saying, that instead of the business account getting $1,500, we're going to say that I got paid that myself, and I'm going to claim that as something called drawings, okay? Okay, so that's how you can sort of get rid of those invoices. Another way is simply, if you've already received $1,500 and you've done the GST and it was for me, the other thing you can do is just void an invoice, okay? So what voiding it is basically just deleting the invoice. So it's already been paid. We don't need to record it against our shareholder current account or anything. It's just sitting there as a waste. We want to make sure that that's gone. And the risk is, if you leave it there, when it comes to tax year end, and your accountant would hopefully pick this up, if you're doing your own tax returns, the risk is that you're actually paying extra money than you need to. So you might be doubling up. You might have an invoice saying you need $1,500 received from Issac still, but you've actually received that cash and put it against your sales as well. So you're saying you've got $3,000 earned of money when you actually only got paid $1,500 overall. Okay, so we need to take away that invoice. But the way Xero works, and I'll work into the bank recs shortly, is if, you know, there was $1,500 from Issac and there was an invoice of $1,500, Xero generally knows that both of them match up. Okay, so it'll apply. And sorry, a lot of this might be going over your head, but I'll touch on this soon, and everything will start linking up as we run through.
Sorry,
So that's
we just
no
have a
worries.
few things, a few questions in the chat. So Rosie was asking if you need to set up the items prior.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, you don't have to set up the items prior. You can actually set it up on the go. So if you're, for example, writing up a new invoice and you've got a new product that's come through and you're going to use that quite a lot, then you might just set it up as a new item. So if I went into invoices and let's say I start a new invoice, for example, if I can just click on new item and go from there and start from scratch. Otherwise, you know, if it's a one-off item, it might not be worth your time to actually go and do that. So you might just manually chuck it in. Okay. But yeah, either way, and if you haven't done that already, that's fine. It's just more about going forward. The idea is to use this technology to save your time. If you're like my mum and she was wasting, you know, 20 minutes or 30 minutes per invoice just to prepare this, and now she can probably do it in about 5 minutes because she can click it. That's 25 minutes saved per invoice. Okay, so it's all about that. Okay, so hopefully that answered that question. Is there any more, Jolie?
Yeah, so Rocky asked if we can link item code and quantity to inventory or stock levels.
Yes, so if I go to items here and new item, there's a video under, actually I'll go to products and services. So for some of you, you might want to actually track your inventory and see what's actually being held. For other small entities, you might not track it at all. And basically when you buy something that you're going to sell, you just chuck into what we call goods, cost of goods sold. So, and we talk about this in the accounting workshop later on. But basically what I'm trying to say is that in regards to the inventory that you're buying, I'll play this video, and this video will actually walk through how you can use it to track your inventory itself.
Use inventory in Xero to keep track of products and services that you sell. See your stock levels, average cost of items, and balances instantly wherever you are with tracked inventory. To begin, enter your items. You can do this one by one or import a list of them. To enter a product or service, click New Item. Enter the item code and name to identify it.
I think that's one point to touch on. I'll just pause it there. if you've got a lot of inventory items and you're starting fresh, she quickly mentioned it there that you can actually upload all of your items. So you don't actually manually have to do it one by one. You might already have an Excel version that you can use. So just on regards to, again, saving you time and involvement there are ways to do that, and you can actually click on these links.
When you add it to transactions like invoices and bills. If you're entering a service you sell or a product that you don't want to track quantities for, leave tracked inventory unticked. The more information you save, the quicker and easier it becomes when you create an invoice or a bill. Untracked inventory is particularly useful for adding services your business provides. Tracked inventory records the quantity and value of goods you have on hand. To add this tracking, select Track Inventory Item. First, select the asset account you want to hold the value of your inventory in. Then enter details about purchasing this item, enter how much you pay for it, and enter the cost of goods sold account from your chart of accounts. Enter a tax rate and a description. Now enter details about selling this item. Enter how much you sell it for, the sales account, the tax rate, and description. Click Save. If you have to enter a lot of items, you can import them using a spreadsheet to save time.
Cool, so I'll stop it there. So just on that, guys, again, that was just showing you how you can use Xero as your inventory. And with Xero itself, it's really good at the general stuff. And Xero might not be as good in regards to this products and services sort of item where you don't have, it might be really good if you don't have many items, but if you have quite a lot of inventory and you're trying to count that, or for audit purposes, you've got to track that better. There are other, they call them Xero add-ons. So it's like another application that you basically use that talks to Xero. So a lot of these will talk to Xero. If you're on any of my chats last year or facilitations last year, one of them was, like a receipt bank or HubDoc, where you can actually take photos of your receipts and all of that information gets scanned and uploaded to Xero, and it sort of gets put as a payable item. And again, if you're processing or scanning a lot of items into your accounting software now, that could be just a quicker way to fast track those sort of items. So that was just one example of how you can use the Xero add-on to make things quicker for you. So that was the invoices side of things. We'll race through the bills to pay because that's not as detailed. Yes.
Hi, question. How about if you're if you do services, like charge up your services? My husband is an architecture. So what he does is he charges out his services and he has to do like contractors, and it's billing on those contractors. I noticed you have inventory, but have you got anything like that where you can set it up as a quote, how you have those consultants, we call it consultants.
Sure.
We have that set up instead of inventories with the different rates, and each job will be different on how you charge. So this is where it gets a bit tricky with different jobs, different charge rates. How, is there a template that I can set up and then
so what I would do probably in your situation, it sounds like the numbers are probably going to always change. So what I would do is I would still set up the sort of items in there, so at least you've got the wording. So it might be contractor junior, contractor senior, it might be owner or shareholder or director time, etc. At least you've got the words all there for each of those items, and then you can go and play with the numbers while you're in that invoice itself. That's how I would do it. Otherwise you'll just have too many list items, and they're not considered inventory. It's just that would just be your what you would be charging them out as, and you could set those rates. You might even just set it as 0, so you have to chuck something in as well, so you don't miss anything. That might be your only other risk, is obviously chucking in the wrong number, but that's how probably I'd approach it.
all right.
So for
yes, we have one more question.
Sure.
Isaac. So this person is asking if we can link a quote sent into an invoice.
Yes, you can. Yep. So before I think I run through it, but basically once you go through your quotes, over here we might have one. So this is just what this is telling me, is it's showing I can have a look at all of my quotes that were prepared, or I can have a look at my sent items that have just gone out to clients and are still yet to be accepted or not. Over here, this has been accepted, but it hasn't been invoiced yet. That's what it's telling me. So what I might be able to do it from here actually. So I can mark it as invoice, or I can just create an invoice. So here I want to create the invoice. So I'm turning a quote into an invoice. And basically this is now an invoice draft invoice, and I'm yet to approve it. So once I review, chuck in my due date for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever, approve that, then now it's an invoice in Xero, and Xero is expecting a payment of 1725. Okay, so that's from the invoice side of things. So from the bills to pay, and to be honest, a lot of businesses don't actually chuck in these bills to pay if you've got small amounts. The risk is, you know, if you've got certain GST types, you'll hear there's GST that's like a payments basis. So you only pay or receive GST when GST is actually paid, when these transactions are paid or not. Whereas you might have the other side, which is the accruals basis. So if I, for example, did an invoice today and my GST period ended at the end of this month, I still have to pay that GST in my GST return, even if I have received it or not. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. And I might not get paid for 6 months, but I've still got to fork out that GST in the next GST return. So that's the difference between the two GST types. Again, we talk about that in more detail in our accounting and tax workshops. We'll actually run through the different GST types, but just showing you in regards to why that's important. And so why the bill side of it is important is for that reason. You might actually want to, if you're invoice basis, you might actually want to make sure you're claiming. So you might have an invoice that's due now, but you don't pay it for a couple of months, but you still want to claim that GST if you're a accruals basis. So that's why you'll chuck it in the system and it would actually capture it. Otherwise, you won't get to claim that GST until you pay it. That's the only thing here. So like I said before, there was the receipt bank or hub doc. So you can actually take a photo and it will create a draft invoice or a payable. So let's say you've got your business, or you might even have, you know, you might have your business might have Auckland rates that it's paying for, commercial rates or something like that, OPEX operating costs. And this, by you setting up a new bill, is you're basically saying, you know, we owe Auckland Council X. I'll type it in here. Auckland Council. Again, this is new. If Auckland Council was already entered before, Xero will have that already. We can chuck in what it's for, rates, quantity, etc. But obviously this can take quite a bit of time. So the receipt bank side of things can take a snapshot and it should basically populate this for you, what it costs. Over here, and this is something I didn't talk about in regards to the invoices, is anytime you're chucking in an invoice or creating a payment, you can actually upload support. So let's say you as a business owner want to make, you know, especially for audit purposes, if you've got audit purposes, you want to, instead of tracking everything in a big folder or whatnot, you can actually keep receipts attached up here. And again, that's just another bonus for you. So same with the invoice side of things. If I was preparing an invoice and I had some emails that I wanted to, you know, actually, this is the client approving my quote, I can actually attach that to my initial invoice as well. Okay, so just to let you know that that service is there as well from Xero's point of view. And again, it's the same system here. We chuck in your quantity, unit price, your account. So what does the expense actually relate to? And I'll touch on these in the bank rec system. So apologies that I haven't gone through this yet, but there's sort of a obviously touch on the invoice system and the credit system and the payable system. And now we're going to work to actually the main point of Xero, and that's the bank recs. So is there any questions before I move on from the payable side of things or the bills to pay?
Sorry, we just had one more question before we moved on. So does a client click a link in the email that moves the quote into accepted?
Yes, good question. So from that quote process, it'll go to the client and it'll say, you know, here's a link for the quote. They'll click into it. They'll also have an attached quote, like a PDF, and it'll have the nice professional looking invoice quote there. Once they click into the into that link, it'll show them the quote and it'll say, do you accept, do you want to amend, or do you want to decline this quote? If they accept it, then it goes, you get a notification as the Xero account owner saying, you know, Isaac has accepted this quote, and then you can go on from there and set up an invoice. So you're basically doing it all versus if you're doing that manually, you know, you've got to log in, manually write it down, track everything. This way you've actually got all of your invoices and all of your quotes in one area. And that's just, you know, how you can use the system again to better yourself. So that's the creditor side of things. Now, the main item for you guys to know, and this is probably what you'd use on the day in, day out. If you're not going to use any payables or bills to pay, that's
So
fine.
sorry, Isaac. I just have
no
someone
worries.
with their hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Marcy, did you have a question? Sorry.
Yes, I do have a question in relation to like the bills to pay process.
Yes.
So how do we handle sort of like bills that are on automatic payments? So
Sure.
we've set up probably automatic payments on mobile phone bills. Or do we still need to prepare, like create a bills to pay, or is
No.
that done at the bank rec?
Yeah, I'll just have that done through the bank rec, and that's what so sorry for, I might be using some lingo that you might not have heard, guys, but the bank rec is basically where, you know, looking at it at a big picture or simplify it, whenever you're spending any money from your bank account or receiving any money, you as a business owner and or your accountant needs to basically put that in a certain bucket. So you're basically saying, is this income? Is this an expense? Is this just drawings that I've pulled out for myself because I'm the business owner? Is this tax that I've paid? Is this GST? What does this actually relate to? So that you think of all those different buckets. So those are all the different account codes. And this is what I've carried on or discussed since being on this chat probably doesn't relate to a lot of you because you won't be doing a lot of invoices or payables. But that's just really important to understand that process if you did move to it. And again, I talked about those different pricing thresholds for Xero subscription fees. If you're doing more of that, then that's what your pricing will, you know, be based on. Okay, so in regards to your main job as a business owner, and I talk about an accounting life cycle, the first part is for you to, you're obviously in the business day in and day out, so you should know where your money's going. Is that income? Is that expenses? Okay, so this process that I'm about to show you involves that. So from the dash, I'll actually start from scratch. Let's say you logged in today, you've got your bank accounts here. So in this scenario on the demo company account, what this is telling me is that Xero actually has 28 transactions or 28 items that needs to be reconciled. So what this is telling me is that I've either spent or received money 28 times, and I need to place it in those buckets that I talked about. Is it income? Is it expense? What does that relate to into the specifics? And we'll walk through that together. Down here for the savings account, this is telling me that I actually don't have any transactions there. And the best part about Xero is that when you start out, or you might even be starting what you consider late, there's also no time to start late. You link your Xero accounts up, or you link your Xero to your bank statements. So instead of you touching anything, anytime you do a transaction, that will flow through to this software, and it will actually know that you've spent money or you've received money.
Leave my stuff.
That's okay. So yeah, just like I was saying before, guys, you can link your bank accounts directly to Xero. Okay, so that's basically step one when you're doing I talk about the Xero foundations. It's knowing if you're GST registered, it's setting up your bank accounts. Once you've set up your bank accounts, then you're good, ready to go. Okay, if you're, let's say you're starting right now, and the financial year is usually April to March, and you might have had all the transactions from today back to April last year that you've missed out on, or Xero doesn't have. Then you'd go into your bank account, and this is probably the stage where you'd either research it yourself, or you try and get some help, or from an accountant. You'd actually download all of the transactions from that period, the earlier periods, because the live bank feeds don't actually backdate, and you'd upload that information into this, and Xero will actually capture all of those, and you've got to work through each of them one by one. Okay, so that's just around the bank rec. So in this example, let's say we've done that step, we've linked our bank account, we're good to go, or we've just uploaded our bank accounts. Now we've got to go through and reconcile them. And again, this is your main part. So you see these items here that are in green, and this is why we went through invoices first. This is telling me that I'd prepared an invoice whenever it was. It might have been 15th of Jan. I had prepared an invoice in this example, and it was for Ridgeway University. And I was expecting to receive, or my invoice was for 6,180. Okay. Now Xero knows, or Xero from the client's payment details, they had actually, referenced it as Ridgeway University, and they also chucked in the invoice number. So Xero is a smart technology that's getting smarter and smarter, and it's actually going, I know where this should go. This is my best guess. Okay, you've already done the invoicing, so from your point of view, you want to make sure, is that payment actually related to that invoice? If it isn't, then you can go back to create. So I'm going to teach you, there's sort of 4 different tabs, and I can say, this was from Ridgeway, but it was an extra payment that I didn't quote for, or the cost had actually blown out, and I can chuck it to a certain account. And again, I'm talking about those different buckets. And let's say it was income. I'll scroll down, and it'll show you assets, liabilities, equity, and there's revenue down here. So which one does it relate to? Let's say it was other revenue, and I chucked it to other revenue. It's going to claim GST on that. So I'm GST registered. It knows to claim GST register if I pick other revenue and go from there. If it was something that didn't have GST on it, again, you can change on the spot. But for now, we know actually that invoice does relate to this payment, and all I do is click OK, and then that transaction's gone. And from Xero's point of view, it's saying, sweet, we've received that money. That invoice shouldn't be showing as a receivable anymore. We've actually received that money. That's gone. And you've also set up your invoice to say, if I receive this money, it's for this income item or whatever it is. And that's already done for you, okay? And then all of this links up to your GST and your tax at the end of the year, where Xero is taking, if you're for this entity or the demo company, it's registered for GST. It knows in its next GST, it's going to include that GST amount for you. So you're not doing any of the manual stuff in the background. It's sort of all flowing through, okay? So bear with me, we'll keep working through some of these. And in this example here, we've actually spent some money. So you've got the spent line here and a receive column. In this example, we've paid rent. And again, we might have created an invoice here for that amount. We can click OK. We're happy with that. This line here is city limousines. And let's say, and this is for a lot of you as business owners, and you might have an accountant that's handy maybe once a month or maybe every couple of months. You can actually jump on the phone, and this is a function that I really like. And let's say you received $100, but it might have been, let's say, a refund, or the client had paid a deposit for something and you actually don't know where to code it. You might type in here, so on the discuss tab. So over here you can see the discuss tab. Even up here in the discuss tab, I can say, wasn't sure where to code this, related to deposit on car or car use or something like that. So if I save that, anyone who logs into Xero can actually see that that discussion tab. Okay, so if I was to be reviewing their GST, they might have 5 different discussion tabs where they don't actually know what it is. So there's 2 options there. The accountant can basically go in, or friend can go in and put it to the right bucket, or even better, actually write back and say, hey, this should be coded to this area. That way you're still learning on the go. And and again, it depends on your involvement. If you just want the accountant to do it, fine. But if you want to just, start learning each of these processes, then you go from there. So that's the discussion tab. This transfer tab, it basically means if, in this example, we had a savings bank account and we had a normal bank account. So if I transferred some money from my normal everyday bank account to my savings bank account, then you basically click on this transfer tab. We're transferring it over to the other bank account, okay, effectively, and that'll flow through to the other end. Okay, does that make sense, guys? It's a process that you obviously need to start doing more and more, but over a maybe a 3 to 6 month period, you'll start to, everything should already be automated. And that's the other side of this, is that let's say we put that to, sorry, I'll get out of this. Let's say we put this transaction to a certain item. Xero will start picking up any time it receives anything from Jacaranda Maple Systems. It knows it should go in a certain spot, okay? So the more you do it, you'll probably start to see more OKs in here. And by the end of, especially your 6 months in a business, you probably would have had a cycle of all the different transactions you'd normally have. Everything should be just an OK. Okay, so any one-offs is when you'd start to spend more time on those items. But you can obviously see at the start, you spend a bit of time trying to reconcile what things relate to, or what buckets it should sit in. after a while, Xero will go, I already know where this is going to go. It's going to be this, but it's not going to automatically do it because you need to review it and okay that. The other item is, which I haven't covered yet, is around the bank rule. So let's say I go into, and I'll cover match as well. So there's something called a bank rule. So what a bank rule is, it's the same as Xero trying to pick out what certain things are, but you might have a certain payee, and what this bank rule is saying is that whenever I receive or whenever I spend money and the payee, so the person who paid me, has used their reference as Smart Agency, then can you please put it to a certain account? Okay, so we'll work through this in a slow manner. If let's say we get Smart Agency, the contact will be Smart Agency. So there's just the name of whoever you're receiving or paying money to. And I want to put that to rates because it might be my rates bill. Oh, we haven't got rates. So up here, I can add a new account. Otherwise, these are the accounts I can choose from at the moment. Okay, guys. So for those of you who are going to be new to Xero or moving into Xero, we'll jump onto our account code soon, but these are all the accounts at the moment that we can pick from. Okay. So let's say that this spend related to consulting and accounting fees, and it was all 100% consulting and accounting fees. Some of you actually might do a merged bill. So let's say this bill to a Smart Agency actually relates to a number of different people. So some of it is consulting and accounting, and the rest of it might be a power bill, and you're sort of consolidating your payments into a certain area. And you can say, 50% of it is usually that related to each of these respective amounts, and that way every time it'll actually apply 50% of that bill to the light and power, 50% to a consulting and accounting in this example. Okay, so that's just around, and how I've seen this being used in businesses, some people with rental properties, this way that they can actually share costs amongst themselves, and that's how you can, this is more the advanced side of things, is that you can have something called tracking codes. So you can actually track, let's say within a business, so my parents, they might own a gym, and then they actually have 3 different physical gyms. So they want to not only use one Xero account to save them coin and time, but they still want to be able to review the finances of each gym and how they're going one by one. So when you do some transactions, you can actually code it against that gym. That's what this region is here for. At the moment, we've got a tracking option, and let's say this was for a gym and it had 4 gyms, an Eastside gym, a North gym, South gym, West Coast. And let's say with anything from Smart Agency, that related to our Eastside gym. So I'm going to put that all to Eastside gym. Okay, so it's a bit longer in regards to your reconciliation process, but the reason for those tracking codes is, again, if you're into the detail, if you might have different business units and you want to sort of track everything against that. And again, this is advanced stuff, but we're just going to touch on everything at a high level. Okay, so that's the bank rules there. Back to my dashboard, it's still saying I've got 26 items to reconcile, and each of these are all to be reconciled. Okay, so again, like I said, you just need to work through each of these one by one. If we've got parking, let's say we type in parking, there's no parking at the moment, it might be under transport or travel. I can just chuck it to my travel, call this central parking as the contact, and I can okay that. So if I'm happy, if that cost relates to my parking expense, it's for central parking, I'm happy, I'm good to go. Okay, so that's as easy as reconciling those. Now you would have seen me click on a match before, and this is again getting a bit more technical in regards to Xero, and it's going to be a lot of information that we'll be going through tonight, guys, or over the next remaining 20 minutes or so. Is this area here, let's say the city limousine's actually part paid an invoice, and you're going to get that a lot. You're going to get some people who have payment plans or hey, I can only afford, they'll call you up, I can only afford X amount this week. That's fine. In this match area is where all your invoices to either pay or to for you to pay, or for money that you're yet to receive, your receivables. So you can actually split it against certain, so for example, and in here, it's actually lined it up from oldest invoice to newest invoices for you as well. So let's say City Limousines are actually a client that's bloody, holding off from a few payments. They've had a tough time in COVID, which is fine, and they've talked to you about it, communicated the problem. So that $100 relates to this invoice. This invoice is telling me that actually we're waiting for $250. We've only received $100 up here. So what I need to do is I need to split it. So I'm going to basically say that of that invoice, we're going to record a part payment of $100. Okay, so there's 150 left to be paid. All right. So I split that. Xero's happy, and I can click reconcile. And now what we've done is we've told Xero that $100 of that invoice has been paid. We're still going to have that amount still yet to be received, the other $150. All right. Yep, Tony.
Yeah, Sophia. Hi.
Oh, Sophia,
so-
sorry, that was on the.
Yeah,
on
that's
Zoom.
okay. Can we also set it up as just the reference number, like the invoice number, to match it up? So
Yeah, for sure.
we notify the client to say, can you please put this as a reference number and payment? So if you just say invoice number, then it's easier to match that way instead of a name.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So that comes down to like your communication around the payment details. So
Yeah.
it would just be, can you please chuck in maybe your company name, then the invoice number, definitely invoice number,
Yeah.
and you have to track that really easy. You're going to have clients that stuff that point up, but
Okay.
if you've got that system set up from the beginning, or when the invoice is sent out, then you'll be able to reconcile a lot of that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but good question.
We have a few questions in the chat, Isaac.
Yeah, for sure.
What is the difference between a no GST and Xero rated?
Oh, yep, sure. So you might be, so I've got a client with a based here in New Zealand, but they actually contract outside of New Zealand, so to an Australian company. And the way that the GST works for him is that he doesn't actually charge the Australian business for his services. So that work is considered Xero rated. Otherwise, an overseas foreign company's got to pay for his GST on his services, and that business doesn't actually have a chance to claim the GST. So in that situation, he's a Xero rated entity. So basically, generally, if you're doing services overseas, and you've got an overseas person purchasing, different for selling goods and services between them, and it is a broad area, but just in that example, that's a Xero rated cost. You might even do a sale of land. That could be also considered Xero rated for GST, again, depending on the purchaser and seller. So generally, most of you on the call would either be GST registered or not GST registered, okay?
Okay, awesome. And we have another one. Will Xero pick up the bank accounts that you link with it?
Yes. So only one bank account can be registered with Xero at a time. So you can't have different Xeros. You might be like, sweet, I can create different Xeros and have a number of my bank accounts mixed in between them. It can only be one at a time. Okay, so in regards to reconciling them, how that process works is you basically chuck in go into Xero, say I want to set up a bank account or link a bank account. It'll say chuck in your bank account number. Then it'll you can either do it either online, you can process it directly, or you've got to print out a form that you sign, and Xero will have that form for you, and it'll use your bank details, and basically you're signing that as the director or the shareholder, saying I approve Xero to link my banking information with my Xero bank account. You send that off to them. It usually takes about 5 to 10 business days, and then all of your transactions will start hitting everything live. Okay, so all your transactions Xero will be live from then on.
Awesome, thank you. And one more, are there any rules as to which expense can be allocated to an account code?
Any rules?
Yeah.
So for you guys on the call, when you set up Xero generally gives you like a basic accounts package, and we'll jump on that now. That'll be actually a good transition into our accounts phase. So how I'm going into here is I'm going through from accounting to advanced, and then there's something called a chart of accounts, and this will be more for the financial guys on the call, or anyone starting out and wondering what account. So in this area is where you'll basically, I talk about those buckets where you want to put different transactions. This is each of the buckets you can actually choose from. Okay, and there's tons in this example, but they're all sort of split into their categories, so you can pick. So let's say we want to choose all our different expenses. If I click on the expenses tab, this is showing me all the different expenses that You know, if I spend some money today and it comes through Xero and I need to reconcile it and it relates to an expense, these are all the different expenses I can code it to. And from my point of view, you know, it might be easier just to have the bare min. So, you know, the bare min is what Xero generally has. It might be your consulting and accounting, your depreciation, which you won't code anything to that. Entertainment, general expenses is usually your last resort, where you'll just chuck anything. It's sort of a catch-all as your general expenses. But, you know, you might be saying, hey, actually, I'm spending quite a bit of money in security, for example. And if we don't have security, like in this example, we don't have security here, I actually want to split that out. So what I'll do is you click on add account. So this is where you come and add a new account. And again, there's a, from your, might be because I've already opened it, but up here, oh, here it is here, right in front of me. We'll play this quick video, eh?
To report on your accounts in a meaningful and accurate way, all your transactions need to be coded to an appropriate account code. So it's important to start out with the list of account codes that's right for your business. This is called the chart of accounts. Xero comes with a default chart, which you can use to categorize your expenses and revenue, as well as your liabilities and assets. You can easily tailor the chart to suit your business, or import an entirely new chart, perhaps exported from your old accounting software. To add a new account, simply click Add Account. The account type you choose will determine where it will appear on your reports, like your revenue or expenses, for example. Give it a name and an account code. Fill in the rest of the details as needed and save. To edit an existing account, simply drill into it and make the changes you need. To delete unneeded accounts, select them and click Delete. If there are already transactions coded to an account, it will be archived rather than deleted, and will still show on reports so you won't lose any information. You can also bulk change tax rates here, saving you time. To bring over the chart of accounts from your old system, you can import it using our template, even if you have already coded transactions to Xero's default chart when you were first getting started. Select Import and download the template. If you are putting your old chart of accounts into this template,
So I'll stop it there because it's getting a little bit technical, but what that's saying is it's basically covering off, I'll jump out of this video. If you are using another accounting software at the moment and you want to move to Xero, you can, and you're happy with the account codes and you're used to them. So it might be certain account codes that you're actually used to in that old system. You can just copy and paste and dump that into Xero as well. Okay, so it's not like you have to come and use these exact codes or these numbers. You can actually copy and paste that. Yep.
Just wondering, can we get the accountant to set this up?
Yes, yes.
He uses MYOB.
Yep.
So is there another way that he can access to allow him to set it up?
Yeah, definitely. So so for example, we call them conversions. So when you convert from one software to another, all we need is the information of, you know, at a certain date, and then we can basically, whatever the balance sheet and the profit and loss is at that date, we need that information, and we can pull that from MYOB. And then what we can do is we can actually transition that over into Xero. So you've got that, and then from the chart of accounts side of things, we can also pull down all of your chart of accounts in MYOB and dump them into Xero as well. So you've still got the same numbers and everything. Yeah. Now, different accounts, some accountants might not be exposed to conversions as much as others. So they might not be able to do that, or they might charge a sizable fee. Now, there are other like bookkeepers and stuff like that out there. Like I've seen some done for maybe $250 to $300 for a Xero setup, maybe $350 max for like right on the cheaper end. And that's just to get everything into Xero from your old system, or just at least to set up your system. And again, it just depends on how much time's involved. Then there's also training time on top of that. So if you are looking to do these sort of setup, these are some of the costs that you might be looking at. Otherwise, some other accounts might charge up to like $1,500 for a Xero setup formation. Yeah, like I said, you've got many, you should have some friends and family around you that might be able to help, but that can only be so good. You've got to make sure that these setup items or foundations are done right, and it's probably worth that upfront cost in some cases. Yeah. Okay. And that's again, if you're, it's more technical than others. Okay, so So anyway, that's the chart of accounts, guys. And that's basically all of the different areas that you can code to. If you're trying to code, like I said, you're trying to code an expense somewhere and you can't find it, you can either add it on the spot, or this is where you'd sort of come in and edit everything. All right. So what's something else in here? If you're missing any codes, it'll probably be sitting in the archive tab. So if you've got Xero now and you've had a tutu around with it, it's probably sitting under there. Otherwise, everything else should be sitting under all of your different accounts. Now, what they didn't run through in that video is if I want to add an account, conscious of time, is that on the right here, this is sort of your cheat sheet. So, many of you aren't the day-to-day accountants, but this is your cheat sheet of where things should be sitting. So if you're trying to find, the account type and you don't actually know what a current asset or fixed asset is, over here you can sort of see the subcategories of it. All right. So if you're looking to say create a current asset and you might not even know what a current asset is, that's fine. We'll cover that off in our accounting stuff workshops in a couple of weeks. Basically, if you're using this item or maybe in an expense code, you can actually just scroll down and find the different area that you're looking for. Okay, so that's just your cheat sheet, just as an FYI. Down here is what you'd tick if you want to enable payments to the account. That's just another extra. So like before, there was that invoice that I was showing, and we did an example where if I had received cash and it didn't actually go through my bank account, but I still wanted to clear that invoice or record that. This is if I want to enable accounts, and usually your shareholder current, if you're a company, your shareholder current account will have the access. So if I click on liabilities and I might have a shareholder drawings, that will be ticked. So basically I can apply a payment to my shareholder drawings account. Okay. Cool. So that's the chart of accounts. That's just one of the areas that you'd obviously look to set up everything there. We'll go through Xero balance and your bank statement balance. So on the dashboard, until you reconcile all of your bank transactions, there's going to be a different balance. So this is showing the bank statement in Xero, and this is the bank statement per your actual bank statement. Okay. Now the difference between those two, or the reason why they're out, is because you haven't yet reconciled all of them. Once you reconcile all your transactions, Xero and your bank statement should equal each other. If it's not equal, then there'll be some issues in there that need to be resolved and looked into. Okay. And one way that you can do that is click onto your bank account. Let's say all of these transactions were reconciled. Up here, you can click on what's called the reconciliation report. And if I look at the report as at today, this is saying that this is the balance in Xero. Here's some, these are all the transactions I'm yet to reconcile. And this is the closing amount per the bank statement. So I can actually see what's left to be reconciled and why there's a variance there. Again, your accountant, if you've got an accountant, will look at that and make sure that everything's reconciling. And that's your main thing at the end of the year. At the end of the year, you want to make sure Xero is talking correctly to your bank. You've captured all of the transactions in the year, and everyone's happy after that. Okay. So what we'll do next is we'll jump into the context tab, and I talked about this, and we can just quickly rush through this one. From each of you on here, you might have a certain contact, and this is more about if you're sending out invoices, etc. You might have a client, for example, if I'm doing customers, and let's pick one, Boom FM in this demo company example. This is where you can actually edit the contact details. You can edit everything around the client themselves. So you can chuck in the email address is probably the most crucial. So that way you can actually send out invoices and communicate with them. Xero can also do something called a automated system where it actually sends out reminders on your behalf. And this, you could pick every 7 days after due date, 14 days after due date, and 21 days after due date. And until that invoice has been paid, your client or customer is going to get that reminder. Okay. And again, that's something that you can edit. If you don't want it set up like that, you can set it up as just a one after 7 days. That's fine. Or you can just tick off email reminders as well. All right. So it's just an option around managing your cash coming in, and a system where you can basically chase those customers if they are being a pain at turning things around. All right. Just letting you know about another thing. Another thing here, in regards to this client, you might actually agree up front that regardless of those costs. We talked about those cost items. They might actually get 10% off on everything that you do from now on. So you can actually set a default sales discount here. So whenever you create invoices for them, and this is more of, you know, let's say you as a business owner agree a rate, but then you have some juniors that are coming through and they're not privy to that information or that agreement up front. At least this way it'll come up automatically, and they might raise some questions, and that way it doesn't get missed, and you get upset customers that are used to the 10% discount, etc., and just go on from there. Okay, so this is where you can sort of customize things to that client. All right. You might also have some clients that like I said, have 0 rate GST, and then some that are have 15% GST. So you can customize their sales settings again to that in this area as well. All right. So again, this doesn't have to be done, but it's just about saving you time in the long run. All right. I talked about finding help. Now the report side of things. So let's say from the for us as business owners, we've done all of our, you know, we're happy with we call it accounts receivable and accounts payable process. We've got that okay for the end of the month. And let's say we're a couple of weeks after month end, we've chucked in all our receivables to be received for that month. We might have some payables that we chuck in, or we don't worry about payables at all. Then from the bank rec side of things, we've actually reconciled all of these transactions, and we're happy that everything up to a certain date is reconciled. When I say reconciled again, we're putting it into those different buckets, or we're happy where they've gone. If we're not happy with where some items should be going, or we're not too sure, we can again chuck it into that. I'm going to reiterate a lot of these things. Chuck it into that discussion tab and say, you know, hey Isaac, I don't know where this should go, but I like it's related to this. That way you can actually get it sorted. Now, let's say you've actually done some mistakes and you're like, oh man, I just had to play around and I have no idea what I did. You can go from accounting to advanced, and you can actually see history and notes. And this will show you everything. It's basically all of the data, any changes that was made. So if, you know, someone has been in your account touching things, you can actually go and have a look. And let's say that it was this transaction here. I want to have a look at it, and no, that's actually wrong. You know, you can fix it there. So one way to do it is remove and redo, and that's just basically your safety net. So if I remove and redo that was the car parking one I'd done. You'll see the reconciled items has gone from 24 to back up to 25. So I need to redo that. Okay. So that's one way. Now you'll be like, man, what if I've touched 100 different things and I don't even know what I've talked about? And you know, I thought I knew everything from Isaac's session, but I've really stuffed things up here. You can do something called find and recode, and this is your other safety net. So if I click on find and recode, there's videos up here too, guys. So in your own time, if you want to use the demo, you can have a look at each of these different areas. But let's say I want to find everything that I reconciled from yesterday to today, and I'll search that. Hopefully there is some things that I've reconciled, not today. Let's say we wanted to, that's not a good example. Let's say we wanted to look at anything between the last 3 days that have been done. Here's everything here that I've prepared. So this is the invoices that I prepared. This is also that fence quote that turned into an invoice that I prepared. And what I can do here is I can click on all of them. I can recode and move it to a different account. So it might not actually have been put to income. It might need to go somewhere else. I can do it here. And this is in bulk. If you do it in bulk, you can also search by like, let's say after 12 months, and I had Auckland Council noted as the reference, but I'd put that to maybe other income, and it should have gone to rates. If let's assuming that the client was here, what I would do is I'd chuck in the contacts, and I'd chuck in Auckland Council, or whatever agreed to that reference, or however it's been coded. I'd click search, and this example won't pop up, but if I click search and it was to Auckland Council there, and if I paid it, say, per month, I would expect 12 transactions there to Auckland Council. I can go and click on all of them and then recode them all to rates, for example. So that's a really quick way. Instead of you going clicking on them each one by one and trying to fix that, this is a really quick way to go and mainly do it as a quick fix. And again, if you're not confident of that, just mention to your accountant or bookkeeper and say, hey, I'm pretty sure this is in the wrong box. Now you'll be thinking, Isaac, we've done all of this work reconciling, we've prepared all our invoices, but I want to see my balance sheet and I want to see my profit and loss and I want to see how I'm going at the moment. So that's what we're going to tick on next. And sorry guys, I know I've been talking for a while, but this is probably the last big thing for most of you. And then you're free to jump off, or we can jump on to some other questions after that. So from here, you can see I've got reports. So I click on reports up here. And this will all be available from your end. Basically, I've got some favorites that are ticked up here. For those of you who are just starting out, yours might look like this. To save you some time, you can actually click on this thing called Show Descriptions, and that's actually a description of what each of the report is for and what it represents. Okay, so now that it's dropped down for me, I can basically review all of these items down here, but I actually want to look at my profit and loss statement. So here we go, financial statements. So there's my profit and loss here, okay? So under this financial area, I can actually look at my profit and loss, and I can look at my balance sheet too. You'll see over here, there's a star. So what that is that's your favorite. So let's say, instead of you going this long, I call it the long way to go and find it, you just click on the star, and that should show up from your drop down from your accounting. So that's why I've got so many up here just for today's session to show you all of them. But if you've got a star next to them, it'll not only show up here at the top, but it'll show on here. So when you log in, you can jump in. Let's say we want to jump in and have a look how we're going in regards to our profit and loss. So let's say we'd reconciled everything for January. What I'm doing here is this is showing the date range. So what do I want to look at? Is it the income and expense for just January, or do I want to look at everything from the year to date? So at the moment, I'll look at just January. I don't want to compare with anything at the moment. So let's just start off with a basic report. So this is showing me my January profit and loss, okay? Now this is assuming I've reconciled everything. So step one is reconcile everything. Make sure your accounts payable or accounts receivable are done if you have any, and then you're ready to go and prepare your own profit and loss. Okay, so a lot of you on the call are like, I want to prepare my own accounts. That's cool. But from a tax side of thing, you just want to make sure that you've got all of that sorted as well. All right, guys. So what's good about Xero is that now that it's got all that data and you've put it into the right boxes or right buckets, is you can basically start reviewing all this now. So let's say this is Jan, and let's say that's not enough info for you to go off. How about we look at the last 4 months as well as January? So now you can review how your business is going per month. Okay, so this is, my sales is, done quite well. In September, I was only $1,000, and we've basically nearly jumped up by $5,000 every month. And then you, as a director or shareholder, you can sort of review this and go, we've introduced new products, or we've got new staff members, or you've changed your hours or your price structure. You might actually be charging more now and working less or working the same. But this is how you can sort of review your own trading. And I see there's a question there from Mary.
Hi, Isaac. Just, a question around, so in regards to this, do most organizations or businesses put in their budget in here as well, so that they can see kind of like their forecast and stuff?
Yes.
How they're going for the month? Yeah,
for sure. So that's a really good question. To be honest, my answer to that, do most businesses do that? No, I'd say bugger all actually do it. And sometimes it's because they just don't know how to set up a budget, or they don't know how to use Xero to set up the budget. So just in regards to that query, that's a really good question, and I'll show you guys how that works. So just to close off the P&L section, you can obviously got your income up here, any purchases related to that income, like direct income. And again, we talk about, try not to dive too deep into these terms. We'll cover this off in our accounting tax workshops when we come to it. But then you've got your operating expenses, and this is showing your profit at the bottom, okay? So this is obviously on a month-by-month basis. Now let's say that's, you want to actually have a look at the year-to-date. Xero's pretty good at, they didn't used to do this, but you can actually check out the current financial year, and you can update that. And then now you can see the current financial year. It's also showing the old periods because of this, but we want to show one period. And then this is actually showing our full year, okay? Now, the other way to do this, and this is other things or other tips and tricks, is you could do this month, update, and then you could compare with, over here on the left, there's also a taskbar. You go to year-to-date comparison. This is all the other it's sort of quick uses of a P&L. So instead of you trying to pick and choose, again, it's like the drop-down area. You can sort of pick and choose. It'll show you where or what the date range is at the top. So that's your profit and loss area, which would be your main one that you'd be looking at. Then you've also got your balance sheet, which is your other common financial statement. And again, I'll minimize that once it opens up. Your balance sheet, we'll cover that off in the accounting session, but it's basically all of your assets and all your liabilities for your business, okay? And again, and this is quite important actually, if you haven't reconciled an item in Xero, it won't show up in these reports, okay? It doesn't show up until it has been reconciled. So if you've got if you're wondering why my bank account's showing, 4,380 at today, but the bank account was actually more than that, it's likely because you haven't reconciled any transactions yet, all right? So that's just a quick, so now in regards to the budgets, I'll go the long way just to show you how to get there. We go from accounting to reports, and then over here, there's something called a budget manager, all right? So let's say you want to set yourself a budget for your business, and this is, so let's say we start from this current financial year coming up. So let's say we want to do, let's go April 2022, and we want to do actual, or we'll go Feb. Let's say we work a calendar year, and we've already got some actuals here. So this is quite good for us. This is where we can sort of review some budget items moving forward. So let's go, and I'll make this wide view. So you got wide view, standard view, by the way, if you are having struggles preparing that. So we want to go from, let's actually go from Jan. So there's already numbers populated in here, but basically this is saying that you've got actuals for December, November, and October. Let's say we want to put in budgets in regards to these line items here. What I can do is I can either manually chuck it in. So let's say, interest income, our actuals, why you have actuals as well, so you can actually see the prior periods, and versus switching back and trying to look at how you've been going every month. Over here, we've got sales of 7,000. We want to hit for January. Now, let's say we want to actually apply that over the rest of the period or over the next 12 months. We can apply that fixed amount over here. So like $7,000, now it's applied to each of the months, again, saving you time. Otherwise, you can say, no, we want to increase our revenue by 5% every month. And again, that's slowly growing by 5%. And 5% is just a common rule that a lot of people use. In regards to cost over a year, you'd expect them to probably grow by maybe 5% or so. And again, from an income point of view, you want to try and match that growth of costs. So if your costs are going up by 5%, you'd be trying to make your income obviously go up by 5% just to mitigate the exposure, especially at the moment with inflation and everything driving costs up. That's a big thing. Mary, did you have another question? Sorry.
Nope. So, I might have. I can't remember. Sorry,
no
is my hand still up?
Yep, no, that's all good though. No worries. The other
Sorry,
side.
Isaac, we have one question
sure.
just in the chat. So what happens if there is a difference in the balance after the account is reconciled?
For the bank, so that'll be for the bank account. So there could be a number of reasons. A lot of them are when you first set up Xero. So when you, when you're pulling in old historic transactions into Xero, you might actually have some double ups there. It depends on that process, making sure that that's done right. You may not have set up, so there's something called a conversion balance, and this is more the technical side of things. And what a conversion balance is basically saying it, as at this date, this is what my balance sheet looked like. So this is what my bank statement balance was. This is what my accounts payable was. So that's sort of your benchmark or your start. And then Xero will go, yep, that's our opening balance. So any new transactions from there is our bank account going up or down, or our accounts payable going up and down, or accounts receivable going up and down. So you can imagine if you had a balance of $10,000 in your bank account, but you didn't put that balance as a start point in Xero, Xero will think that you've only got you've got a nil balance at start date. So there's going to be 10 grand variance from that point. Okay. And that's something that I would say suggest you definitely get help from a friend or family, or you just do a bit of research, and it might be a bit slower. But over the financial year, you generally got 12 months or so to get your accounts in scratch if you've got a tax agent and whatnot. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Oh, yep.
The accountant sort of mentioned for us to start Xero around about April, the new financial
Yeah.
year. And so to trial it out. So if we do a trial, say from now, in that demo company, can we also run the accounts, run the reports on that too? And it doesn't count? Is that right? It doesn't.
So you want to just run the report in Xero? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. If we do if we do a trial for free, and we use the demo company and it's not really in use, we're just doing a trial. So that by April we're able to kick off and start anew.
Yeah, definitely.
The balance all nil and the opening balance start from scratch.
Yeah, definitely. So what I'll do is I'd probably one way you could set up a trial account, jump into your demo, probably delete the transactions and then just upload your own. So you can import transactions. I wouldn't link it because it sounds like you're going to just use it to set up a demo, but you could just have a play around doing it that way with your own numbers. And you could actually, or you just use the demo company and create your own reports and you just play around with the figures that way.
Oh, okay. So don't link up the account details until April.
You can, well, from
Is
your,
what you're saying?
Yeah, I would try and just, because the reason for that is that however you're using your accounting system or software now, is it's just really clean to keep the same right up to 31 March. And then 1 April is that they're going to start this new system. So basically, when you get your financial statements and your accounts at year end, your accountant's going to take those numbers, chuck them in as your conversion balance or your start point. Yeah. And then from there, you're going to start. So you might set up Xero and link your bank account before April. That's probably what I do, is set it up before April so it's hitting the ground running. Yeah. So and at the moment, and sorry, I didn't mention this before, is that with Xero, guys, your first 30 days is free. And then there's also a code out there that you get 50% off for your next 3 months. So before you put your credit card into anything around Xero, make sure you're having a look at how you can get some discounts there. So that should hopefully cover some short-term costs too. Okay. And then up here, guys, in regards to, so back to the budget, in regards to this, let's say I've got everything from my prior month is there. I can actually click on this and say, apply amounts to each month from January. So I want to apply everything in January to the following months. So if I click that, everything should flow through if I had a budget there too. Okay. So what I'm saying here is if there was other budget amounts in earlier periods, I can copy that and move that forward. If some of these amounts are unrealistic, then you can update them and say, no, that my vehicle expenses are going to be $250 now, and I want to apply that to every month. Now that flows through. Okay, so this is just this area. Overall budget is about setting up your budget. Make sure you save, and then you can go into your. I've got it as a favorite, saved down as a favorite, and it's called budget variance. And then when this opens up, so this was back to Mary's question, you can just check in your budget against, checking how you've actually done against your budget. At the moment, it's picked up, it's doing year to date on the right as well. For my eyes, I probably would just remove that, and I'll show you how to do that soon. But basically, this is saying, over February, would expect to get $7,000 at the moment. We're $2,000. Maybe February is not a good idea. Let's actually look at, because it's not a full month yet. Let's look at Jan and see how that's going. Jan, we did $16,000. Our budget was $7,000, so we're up. This is our variance. We're up by 9.6. And we've also increased our sales by 137%. So that in regards to you actually reviewing your numbers, this is how you can use. And actually, now that I think about it, there's one thing I missed that's quite crucial. So for you guys as business owners, you're going to be like, man, why do I have $17,000 in there? I don't think I earned that much. I think I made a mistake. There's got to be something wrong. Each of these items in here, we call them drilling down. So you can actually drill into them. So let's say I open up a new link for, I want to have a look at what's making up that $16,000. And now I can see all of the different invoices. Okay, so these are all the invoices that are prepared and showing that I've receiving or about to receive some sort of money. And there might be some double ups in here. That's just a good thing to look out for. It could be you might have prepared an invoice 3 times on accident, and you're actually triple counting money. This is what I was saying at the start of the call, where your risk with, you might receive the same amount of money but not code it to an invoice, is that still sitting there as an invoice and income to pay. So at the end of the year, you'll do something called a aged receivable review, and I'll show you that, which is a good tool. So under reports again, and this is what your accountant will do, is basically age payable, or let's go age receivable summary. And this might be you for a business owner. Every month you want to just review who owes you money. And this is, as at today, this is telling me that all of these clients owe me money. Some of them are current. 8.7K is under a month. And then we've got nothing that's older than 3 months. So that's good for us. We're happy with that. But city limousines, we talked about them before, they're only paying maybe $100 a week or something. So they're slowly paying off their bill. And that explains that. Obviously, we want to keep everything current or within 1 month from a cash flow point of view. And this is how you can sort of review that. Okay, guys? So that's just something there. Same for your age. So then this is where you might have created an invoice to pay something, but you haven't actually cleared that and it's been sitting on the books for ages. You can go to age payables summary. And I know in the demo company, there's something that's quite old here. Once it loads, we've got some stuff here that's, we've actually got one transaction from Central Copiers that's older than 3 months. And then me as a business owner, I can go, actually, I paid that. I went in myself and paid it with my own bank account card. So I need to clear that, remove it, or say that I paid it as a business owner and put it to maybe shareholder funds introduced, if that makes sense. So I'll just run through that so it's not confusing. Let's say this invoice here, it's still due to be paid. It's older than 3 months. I knew it was actually paid. Actually showing here, we received $900. So we've done a split payment. There's 163 left, but let's say I knew that I'd received that in cash, or they paid it to my personal bank account instead. It might have been a friend. Got paid today, and I'm going to say that it was against my drawings account, and I'll add payment, and then that invoice will clear. And Xero's still accounting for that. Now, how all of this interacts. So you've seen the report side of things. So how you can have a look at your profit and loss, how you look at your balance sheet. The other main side is if you're GST registered, all of these transactions and all the work you're doing behind the scenes is helping you prepare, your GST and everything like that if you're GST registered, and help you process this quicker. So let's say we've reconciled everything properly, and this is telling me don't file this yet because there's still some transactions that are unreconciled. You can still file it as is, but you're better off to make sure everything's reconciled. It'll give you your GST return, show you how much you need to pay, so it's live, so you can actually go in and see this. And again, you don't need an account to prepare, how much GST did I pay, how much did I receive? This does everything for you. It's already, because let's say if I process an invoice and that gets paid, if I'm on cash basis, Xero knows that, $100 of that invoice, etc., for example, is GST. It's going to put it into this GST bucket and get caught here, okay? So, in regards to the GST audit report, this is what accountants will use if you're doing it, if they are preparing your GST. This is where you, as a business owner or your accountant, can actually review transactions and make sure that they're correct. So make sure that GST is being claimed correctly on your expenses, GST is being paid correctly on your sales, and then if there's any other transactions that have no GST, like bank fees and whatnot. Okay, so just in regards to how it would flow for GST, that's really how it would work. But yeah, is there any questions on that, guys? That's a lot of information that we'd covered, probably too much information, but yeah, we've only got obviously this one session at the moment in this program.
Can we get a copy of the recording of this?
Can they, guys? I'm not too sure.
Yes, we'll try and edit out some chat because we can't share the chat function, but yes, I think we can send out the recording since we don't have any slides for this session.
Oh, but
Yeah,
you've got
I think
slides. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're just showing us your live screen, is that right?
Yes, the training, what we went through today, that'll be in the recording.
Oh, yep. Sweet.
Yeah. Isaac, and we just had one question in the chat. How
Yeah,
do we
sure.
track our drawings account?
Sure. So what drawings is, guys, and I'll touch on this again later in the accounting sessions, is you as a business owner pulling money out. So you're actually trying to track all of the funds that you've pulled out for yourself or not. end of the year, you want to make sure you've at least covered those drawings. If I go to today, hopefully there are some transactions here. Yes, there are. So in your balance sheet, this is where your drawings account sits, all your funds. So if you put money into the business, you record that against shareholder funds introduced. Or if you pull money out, you put it into drawings, or you can put it into the same account. It doesn't really matter. It's just about how you'd like to track it. At the end of the day, as long as it's being tracked somewhere, and that's the main thing about this accounting software, is that it's tracking all your transactions. Okay, so in this example, it's telling me my current balance that I've taken out, or total amounts, is $163. Okay, and that's where you'd find it. But is there any other questions, guys? Sorry, that's, like I said, a big dump of information. But hopefully we've covered off the main parts of Xero. For those of you who are just starting out and looking to transition, most of that you don't actually need to do day one. It's just getting that, making sure your chart of accounts are set up, so you've got the accounts that you want to code your buckets to, and then you know how to reconcile, and that's it. Okay. Question
Sorry.
from Mary? No worries.
I've got one more question. Just in regards to liabilities and non-liabilities. So
Yep.
What I could class as liabilities is if I were to apply for some funding to cover like venue hire or education courses, does
Yep.
it go in? I can put it into a liabilities account, or
Yep.
kind of, until it is actually used for its purpose.
Yes,
Is
that's
that
right.
Okay,
Yep,
and so
that's-
I would probably see that listed under the current liabilities.
Yes, that's right. So usually current liabilities are some debts or something that, it could be income in advance that you're looking to use up, or some debts that you're looking to pay within the next 12 months
Okay,
of
cool.
the financial year. Anything older than that, you can put it to non-current liabilities. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect in regards to your own Xero. It could also sit under just current liabilities, as long as you've got separated assets and liabilities. That's the main thing, okay?
Awesome.
Yeah, I think there are no more questions in the chat. But if anyone had any questions, we have a few moments. Oh, sorry, Isaac, are you done?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, is it
Yeah.
question? Okay, yes. We had no more questions in the chat. We've gone through all that. Thank you for that. But yes, if you had any questions and you wanted to ask, please unmute and ask away before we close off the session.
Can we ask you questions outside this forum?
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to help you out with any high level questions. But I can see some questions, some hands being raised as well. Or
It's not
even
so
if,
much high level, it's just trying to find out what sort of questions to ask you and how to ask you the question that I want to
yeah,
know,
sure.
because
That's
we're still trying to
Trying to
through
dissolve
what
the
you've just-
information.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to help out or be on call through the PPT team.
Yeah,
Go through.
if you can just send it through to either me or Eleni, one of us at the PBT team, and we can reach out to Isaac with the questions. Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Are you taking new business, Isaac?
Pardon me?
Are you taking new business?
Always. Well, I've only just started in the last year, so I'm a small business as well. But yeah, if you need a hand, I'm happy to help out. Otherwise, I also know the team at PBT are awesome as well. So regardless of their connections, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Isaac, are you able to guide us through how to obtain the license or get the software activated?
For Xero?
For Xero, yes.
Yeah, it's literally as easy as jumping onto Xero.com, I believe, and then just I think it's even set up a trial account now, and then you just need a email address, your name, and that's it. Once you're in, and then you'll be on what's called a trial phase for the next 30 days, and then after that, it'll ask you that it'll remind you that your trial's ending shortly. And then basically you can start signing up to whatever subscription suits you, depending on your invoices, etc. And then you're good to go. So there's no formal, signing or anything like that. It's just like signing up online to an email link, basically, and that's it.
Okay. I think for the Pacific businesses, I was being told that Pacific Business Trust will help us to obtain the license or something.
Yes, well, I've got my own business, but then I also work through another company called Johnson Associates, and like I'm actually walking through a client at the moment. They were fortunate enough to meet the requirements, and they're getting funded to get Xero assistance. So I'm actually helping them with.
Yeah, actually.
Oh, sorry, I might have lost you there.
Yeah, I think she got cut off. Or probably come back to her, but we have a few hands that have been raised. Jackie, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, thank you so much. Isaac, thank you very much for today, PBT. Yeah, always good to have your wonderful sessions and workshops. Just one question, Isaac. For a small business, especially working from home, is there a formula kind of to work out your rent and your expenses like phone, internet, and things like that?
Yep.
On Xero?
Not on Xero, no. So that's something we didn't touch on. That's something that is done through what's called a manual journal. And maybe I'll chat to that quickly here. So that's sort of done at the accountant's level, generally, unless you're quite up to scratch with Xero. And what that is it's, I wonder if you can even do it. And here, yeah, you can. So under accounting, there's something called manual journals. And what this is, it's sort of a non-cash movement or non-cash transaction where you're basically telling Xero that you want to, let's say it was home office. Is there a home office or office? Let's say it's office expenses. And for you as a shareholder, and this is quite technical, so don't feel like you need to remember all of this. This is just the process that I'd take. Is actually be a shareholder funds introduced. So what I'm saying here is, I'm saying I want to record an expense in the business. So we want to make sure we're covering an expense, but the business hasn't actually paid for anything. I've paid for that out of my own funds. So I've paid rent for 12 months. I've paid for power, etc. So I put those values in here. Now, in regards to that calculation that you're talking about, that's based on your square meter rate or square meters that you're using for your home office. Again, an accounting question at the end of the year. That's generally what I'd ask you and say, hey, roughly what is your business space, and can we review that every year as well? Also making sure that you're covering all of your costs. So you've got, let's say 10% of your house was for business. And again, we talked to this in a bit more detail in the accounting and tax one, but if it's 10%, then 10% of all your costs related to that work office, we can claim. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries.
And yes, PBT, could I please have a recording as well? Thank you.
Yes, we'll be sending you'll probably a link, because we usually just upload it onto a YouTube page, and then we'll send you a link, and then you can watch the recording through there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just on that recording, there could be some I'd probably more on behalf of PBT, there's no guarantees that could get sent out as well, just in regards to the privacy side of things of the Zooms. So depending on how the recording turns out, that's just an FYI. But yeah, hopefully we can make things work out for you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have Rosie. Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the very informative session. I have a question about having another CRM altogether and having Xero connected to it. When the information gets pulled through in terms of quotes and invoices, would we still be able to use the quotes and invoicing system that you've described today?
Yeah, for sure.
The information that's come through from the CRM?
Yeah, depending on the level of detail behind it. Let's say you're a much bigger organization than just a small business. You might need some sort of custom system, but if everything that you do day to day looks like it could fit into Xero, there's no problem with setting up all of your account codes and all of your invoice codes and everything like that, all of your, you know, items that you're selling. If we can pull that data out in an easy way into what I'm saying, easy into an Excel sort of version that we can manipulate and make it work into Xero, then yeah, there's no problem with that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, but yeah, again, it's always case by case. You might be better off having another software system or a Xero add-on that does that job for you much better than Xero itself. But again, it still talks to Xero as well. Yeah.
Okay, I think that was all the questions.